Hello there! Back when I first made my channel, I made a video about my favourite books. I wouldn't recommend watching it now, to be honest. It's not relevant for my tastes at all anymore. And to be honest, yeah, just probably don't watch it. So I thought I would do an updated version of my favourite books. I find the question, what's your favourite book, very difficult because it changes on different days. I have a pile of books here though. There's 8 books, sorry about the strange number, but that's just how it worked out, that I would say are my favourites all in all. So let's just get into it. Starting with Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. I need to reread this. I read it about 2 years ago and absolutely loved it. It's basically about a boy called Oscar Scholl, who he is a very interesting character. He's almost written like, I don't think he does have autism, but it's almost written like he does, but I think that's just the simplicity of the child's voice, and it's so fantastically done. It's very experimental. Basically his dad has died in 9/11, and his dad was his best friend, his everything, his role model, and they used to play games where they set each other mystery little clues around the place, and he finds a note written in his dad's wardrobe, and he thinks it's the final little mystery tour, so he goes on an adventure to find out what this note means, and it's just a really heartwarming and lovely and sad but wonderful story. It's very experimentally done. There are pictures throughout. There's playing with the text, if I can find any. Things like this. It's just fantastic. But it's really lovely, really heartwarming, and I would definitely recommend this to anybody. Then I've got Ray Bradbury's Dandelion Wine. This is one I nearly forgot off of this list, and I quite often forget about it, but it was such a lovely book. Again, one I need to reread because it's been about 2 years since I read it last, but it was a really wonderful book, and I remember just being absolutely blown away by the writing, so I definitely want to include this in here. This is basically a fictionalised account of one of Ray Bradbury's summers living in, I can't remember where it is, Illinois, and it's about Douglas, a fictionalised version of, I think, Bradbury, and his brother, and it's basically just about their summer holiday, and it follows the street that they live in, and it's sort of, we see what happens to each of the different characters, and sort of, it's a wonderful story that just absolutely encapsulates this feeling of having 6 weeks of summer ahead of you when you're a child, and it's just fantastic, and the writing is, as always with Bradbury, spectacular. Then we've got Carson McCullers' The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. This is a more recent one. I read this last year, and I just really enjoyed this, and it almost opened my eyes to a new sort of genre of books that I hadn't really read before or bothered with before. I picked this up purely on the strength of the title because it is a lovely title, and it completely blew me away. This is about he's a mute deaf man called John Singer, and he lives in a small town in America, and he sort of becomes a god to the people there, and it's very interesting because people go to him with their problems, and obviously he can't hear them, he can't respond, and they just unload onto him completely, and they feel as though he's giving them advice, and they feel as though his very presence is solving their problems. And it's actually very interesting because obviously we get John Singer's point of view as well, and he just thinks they're idiots. He just has no respect for these people that think that he is everything for them. He is their god. He is this one true voice that they can go to, and he can give them all their answers without saying anything. And it's very interesting, and it's a really good look at how we project onto other people, and also how lonely we all actually are, because ultimately we haven't got anybody. And it's really, really wonderful and very sad, very depressing, but the writing is phenomenal. I think Carson McCullers was 22 when she wrote this, so amazing, absolutely amazing, definite recommend. Then I've got a slightly different book, which is Fernando Pessoa's The Book of Disquiet. This is a posthumously published collection of Fernando Pessoa's essays and writings and just musings on life. He was a poet in his day, I haven't actually read any of his poetry, but I absolutely loved this book. As you can see, I've tabbed various places for like when I'm not feeling good in life generally. This isn't a cheery book at all, and yet it makes you feel better about life, because in his musings he just completely hits the nail on the head, and it just makes you feel less alone. And I feel certainly for somebody who is quite quiet, quite withdrawn from life, finds social interaction quite difficult, I think this would be ideal. Anybody who's into sort of a creative pursuit as well, and the struggles that come with that, that's all covered in here. And it's just really wonderful and definitely worth a read. I read this straight through, and I think it could probably do with being read in chunks, but I just devoured it, and it was really enjoyable that way as well. So definite recommendation on that one. Well, obviously, I'm saying this on all of them. I recommend them all. They're my favourite books. Then I've got John Steinbeck's East of Eden. This I knew I loved, and I read it last year and I absolutely adored it. And it sort of followed on from reading The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. I picked this one up. But it wasn't until I saw Leslie's review, Words of a Reader, a few days ago that she did of this, that it reminded me how much I did love this book. So I definitely wanted to recommend this in here. This is a sort of sprawling family saga, and it looks in various guises at the story of Cain and Abel, which is very interesting, and it's sort of, that's the centre of it, but there's so much more, and it follows these characters. Some of them nice, some of them not, but all of them flawed, and it looks at what it means to be good and what it means to be evil, and the fact that nobody can be either or, really. We're all parts of both, and it's absolutely amazing. Steinbeck's writing is spectacular. I would just, anyone needs to read this. I think it's one of those books that everybody would adore. It's not a fast-paced book, and it's very thick, but it's just fantastic. Then I've got Ali Smith's The Accidental. This is still my only Ali Smith. I need to read more. I've bought like every Ali Smith I've come across since reading this, but have yet to read them. So I definitely need to redeem that fact. However, this was amazing. It's a very Marmite book, I've come to find. Some people love it, some people hate it. There's not really an in-between. But I absolutely adored it. I thought the writing was phenomenal. This follows a family who are on holiday, and a woman called Amber stumbles into their lives. Every member of the family, they're very disjointed, and they assume that she knows somebody else from the family. And she sort of becomes ingrained in their lives, and then once they realise that actually she's a complete stranger, she's just chanced into their holiday home, they don't want her to go because they like the influence she has. It's a multi-perspective novel, so we follow sections from each family member and also sections from Amber, and it's very interesting to see how disjointed the family is through these sections, and also the impact that Amber has, because she's not a very nice presence, and she's quite malicious and horrible to each member of the family, and she has quite a negative impact on them, but they don't discuss it among themselves, so neither of them know what's going on, and they all think everybody loves Amber, and it's very interesting and a really fantastic look at family life. Then I've got The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake by Amy Bender. This is a fantastic novel about a girl who begins to taste people's emotions in the food they cook. And obviously she's young, and this causes her various issues, especially concerned with the things she finds out about her mother through the food her mother cooks, and things she doesn't want to know. She sort of tries avoiding eating food produced by anything but a factory. I mean, even from factory food, she can taste the emotions of the people who have serviced the machines and things like that, but because it's slightly further away from the food, it's more bearable. And it's just a really wonderfully written, magical book. There's other elements of sort of magical realism involving her brother and a mystery with him, which I won't spoil. And it's just really wonderful. The writing is phenomenal. I would definitely recommend anyone who hasn't read Amy Bender to pick her up, because she is fantastic. Then finally, and I'm sure a lot of you already know about this one because it's quite a recent read for me, If Nobody Speaks of Remarkable Things by John McGregor. This I read at the start of this year, and it's definitely gone straight up into my favourites, and it's definitely going to be on my favourites for the year. It is an amazing book. The writing is phenomenal, just fantastic. This is it's basically about the lives of the people on a street, and something happens in the street at the beginning. We then go back in time, and we get to know all the neighbours, all the characters on the street, and we're leading towards this bad point that we started with, and it's just about unremarkable things really, and it's done so well, and it's done in snapshots, and we don't learn the names of these people, we just come to know them through traits like a scar or a habit they have or a moustache or something like that. So say there's a man with scarred hands, so we know him as the man with scarred hands. We don't really learn any of their names, and it's just such an interesting technique, and it's fantastic, and I just really loved it. We get to know the characters through sort of snippets, and it's like Polaroid pictures, there is a theme of Polaroid pictures in here as well, and it's just perfection in a novel, honestly. I would really like to reread this, because I think on the first read it's amazing, but there is part of you that thinks, am I following this, what's going on? Certainly until you get to know the characters a bit better and you get to know their sort of standout points. I think it would be very, very interesting on a reread, because obviously you know where you are a bit more, you know who the characters are a bit more. I think the experience would be very different, and I can't wait to reread this at some point. It's not for everybody, I would say. I definitely don't think anybody would enjoy it, because it's a very slow, different novel. There's not a plot as such. For anyone who enjoys phenomenal writing that's quite poetic and beautiful, this is a winner. So those are my new favourites. Let's disregard my old favourites, because my tastes have changed so extremely since then. These are my new favourites, and I obviously recommend every single one of them. Bye!